All right, welcome everyone to GCEC Virtual Connection, our 15th session in this series. Today we're going to talk about concentrated immersive experiences. We've got some great panelists coming up and look forward to hearing more about that. First, just a little bit of background for those of you who may not be familiar with GCEC. We are the global consortium of entrepreneurship centers. There are hundreds of universities from all over the world who come together and share best practices, learn from each other, and how to run their entrepreneurship centers. One of the things that we've learned over many years, I'll say it's been 23 years since the first time I went to a GCEC conference, and it's one of the best, most sharing communities that I've been a part of. Folks in this community love to help each other out. We're all learning from each other. There's no one right way to do things. And so it's great to be able to share what you're doing, what works, what doesn't work. And so we're excited to have people here. We have a monthly newsletter, an annual conference coming up in Las Vegas this year in October. We had a wonderful conference last fall in Baltimore. We thank the host schools who do the heavy lifting and putting those conferences together. And I think we're in the process of recruiting and evaluating host schools for future GCEC conferences. If it's something you think you might want to do, then just let us know. And we'll put you into the mix here and see what it might take to bring GCEC to your city. We also have an awards program and then this virtual connection series. We've learned that our members enjoy learning from each other all year round, not just at the annual conference. So welcome here. Once again, UNLV is our host for the October GCEC conference. We hope you'll mark your calendars for October 27th through 29th. Go to the website. There's a great video there and other information. Our friends Keith and Nadine and their colleagues at UNLV are doing a lot of great work getting ready for what I assume will be an epic GCEC conference. So Vegas 2022. So now we're going to introduce our panelists and we're going to give each one of them a chance to talk about their program, what they have done in the area of a concentrated immersive experience. And we're going to go one by one. And then at the end, we'll have an open conversation, and we encourage attendees to post questions in the chat at any time. We'll do our best to get to your questions. And so I will introduce let me take off the screen share here, and then we'll introduce our first panelist. All right. So first up, we have Dan Olszewski from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Dan, tell us all about the Mortgage Entrepreneurial Bootcamp. Oh, you got to unmute first.
You know, after 2 years, you'd think I'd learned that. But thanks so much, Jeff, and very appreciative of the opportunity to talk about the bootcamp. I'm going to share a few slides here. So this is a boot camp that we've been running now for probably 14 years and focuses specifically, the target audience are STEM, PhD, masters, and postdocs. And it's 1 week, 55 hours though, so about 12-hour days on average. And it's focused on technology entrepreneurship. It's no cost to the students because we've had donors that have been very supportive of it. And I'm going to do this fairly quickly in 5 minutes, but we're also very honored to have been recipient of the GCEC Teaching in Pedagogy Innovation Award this last time in Baltimore. And it's been, I think we had a really great impact. I'll talk a bit about that as well. So happy to share this. First off, the audience of the students, very diverse, all over the campus, lots of different disciplines here at Wisconsin, and they're represented in who's attending this. As you see here too, it's a little under about 2/3 PhDs with a mix of other graduate programs. We have found some of the most entrepreneurial students we have are the postdocs in this area. So originally we weren't even sure we'd admit them, and they've become some of our most target audience with this program. A few things that we've found to be the key success factors for it is our approach is to view this as almost more of an exec ed experience for the students. And by that, I mean, they're in our building, they're here, those 12-hour days, we supply them with 3 meals a day. They are working either in the class or in teams all of that time. And we then obviously have to mix it up because 12 hours of lecture would be miserable. So we do the panels, the lectures, the cases, just keep it loose for them. And we've also found that having it be 1 week during the semester is actually fits with their schedule better than a class throughout a semester. And that is, it's easier for them to view it as almost a vacation. They talk to their advisor and they get the week off on their research. And talking to the advisor is very important so that they can continue to show up. We have also found that providing the next steps has been very beneficial to the students, meaning all the other resources that we have on campus that they can partake, because entrepreneurship, it can be fairly daunting for most students that don't know a lot about it, have never taken a business class. To realize there's a big community that can support and help has been very beneficial. There are some things that haven't worked as part of the experience. I think we've learned from that. I also want to share that. We originally thought this would maybe be a 4 credit, and in talking with the students, many of them don't need the credits. In fact, that's more of a hassle, paperwork, having to pay for it depending on their dissertator status. So wasn't something they were looking for. We also have dialed back on the number of law students we let in because they can definitely add a lot to the discussion, but it doesn't take much for them to overpower the discussion and change it. We also have realized that the faculty really need to be educated that these are brilliant students who have probably never taken a business class. So the jargon, if you say something like EBITDA, you're going to lose them. And it does have to alter some of the teaching that goes on in the room. We also have been very driven by some outcome metrics to track that, to see how this, what type of impact we're having. One of the metrics that I have found very helpful, and our supporters have also found very helpful, is the Net Promoter Score, which is commonly used in business. So it's a nice common one. It's just recommending, would you recommend this program to one of your friends? And we have had really stellar scores there. You know, a scale of -100 to +100, 88 is truly world-class. So the students love that. We've gotten just some glowing quotes from them as well, an active alumni group. And we're also quite proud of the fact that, while this is an accelerator, it's very early stage entrepreneurship, we have seen these alumni go off and start a lot of businesses. In fact, this past year, we just broke the $500 million in venture funding from alumni from this program. And that's been actually a lot of different. It's not, you know, we didn't get one that did 400 million. It was a lot of 20, 30 million in capital raise, with just a couple over 100 at this point. And one has done an IPO as well. We also always like to say we have got one amazing race winner that came out of this as well. This was the our nutritional sciences, food sciences, that were candy and ice cream experts that ended up winning the amazing race. So I think I hit my 5-minute mark there, which was fairly rushed, but happy to answer any questions you may have.
Oh, that was great, Dan. I've got a couple questions, and I encourage our audience to put questions in the chat if you have some. So what do you do during that 55 hours in the week? How much of that is lecture versus activities, and what parts do you think are the most impactful?
Yeah, and with that, and I'm happy to share the kind of a syllabus or nutshell with anyone who sends me an email afterwards. With part of this is we really, I'd say the important thing is to mix it up because it just adds that variety. And we try to have probably 2 lectures, 1 panel, 1 case, and one and some time for them to read next day's work to mix it up. And that's our standard, how we spend the day. And they're 1.5 hour sessions, each one.
Okay, it's and the core purpose here is to get scientists, faculty, postdocs, grad students, you want them to learn about entrepreneurship, right? I think you were clear to say it's not an accelerator where they're necessarily actively starting their own business, but it's more an overview of what it takes to launch a company. Is that a fair way to describe it?
And so absolutely, what we have found is they are, these are people that have never taken a business class and have never taken an entrepreneurship class, but fundamentally think they want to commercialize something or think they want to be an entrepreneur. So they'll come in, go through this experience, go back to the lab, and then start looking around for things they can apply to solve problems. And is the mind shift from technology is key to solving a customer problem is key. And then they end up starting something. And we see them in our classes as well after that.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I assume that there might be this might be a feeder into other programs. Have you, how has that played out? Do you have specific next steps available, or is it just kind of more of an ad hoc scenario?
So that's what kind of at the graduation, if we will, we have provide them with the next steps, both from a curriculum standpoint, if they want to take classes, if they want to engage in any of the other university resources, even in an accelerator, various accelerators that are available and other support that they can get depending on what they want to do. And, these students have gone off. I mentioned those that have started businesses. A lot of them have also made a lot of them have become faculty at other institutions, but others have decided, hey, this business thing is actually pretty interesting, and have gone on into venture capital, into consulting, and into corporate non-technical fields as well.
That's very impressive. The outcomes, the dollars raised, and the amazing race victory, and the NPS score, all very impressive. I know I used to work at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where we had a lot more scientists interested in this area. At Georgetown, where I am now, we don't have the same level of the just dollars and scale of research activity. So I think we would have a hard time getting the number of people involved, but it's been impressive what you've done. There have been a few questions in the chat. Once we move on, you can have a chance to type in there. I see that your email address has already been put in there. Maybe you can put any web links or anything else to your program. But I did want to ask, what is the connection or relationship you might have with your Office of Technology Transfer on campus there?
So our it's a very close. It's a WARF, is the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation, which is actually started in 1925. So it's the oldest technology transfer office in the nation. To license vitamin D in milk was when it got started. So they were one of the original founders that helped get this started, along with John Morgridge, who is been teaching entrepreneur. He's the CEO or former CEO of Cisco. Teaches at Stanford and helped to get this started, and still comes out and teaches each year at age 87 and does a phenomenal job of it. So we work with WARF they do the IP part of the week, and they also are a great resource for next steps. So alumni have gone to work for them, have done their invention disclosure to them, and they have an accelerator and incubator as well. So they fit very nicely into the next steps and resource side of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much to Dan Olszewski. Dan, I didn't give his full intro earlier. Dan is the director of the University of Wisconsin Weinert Center of Entrepreneurship, UW-Madison. As your time's almost up, I'm going to ask that you don't call any timeouts here in the last 15 seconds. Little Big Ten college basketball joke there. All right, so moving on. Thank you, Dan. Next up, we are going to welcome Regan Stevenson, who is an assistant professor of entrepreneurship and the Shoemaker faculty fellow in entrepreneurship at Indiana University. So Regan, you are up next.
Thanks so much for the intro, Dan and Jeff. Great program to follow up on here. So let me tell you a little bit about this program that we've developed called the Idea Blitz at Indiana University. And before I get into the program, let me just give a quick acknowledgement to a co-submitter who is Greg Fisher on this project, and as well our our faculty lead on our center, who is Don Karatko, Dr. K, as many of you know him, at the Johnson Center here at Indiana University and Kelley School of Business. So collectively, we've worked together on this project, and we were also fortunate enough to be awarded the GCEC Teaching Innovation Award this year. So thank you very much for that as well. So what is the Idea Blitz? Let me tell you a little bit about it. Okay. You can also go to that website there, virtualideablitz.com, which we've got ready for you if you want to take another look. So essentially, the Idea Blitz is a weekend-long immersive and intensive virtual learning experience. This experience introduces students to the process of developing, testing, and validating ideas under uncertainty and time pressure. And that's really the key that we're after here. So students work in cross-functional teams to come up with new ideas. They attempt to validate pain points related to those ideas with external stakeholders. So they have to leave the building, so to speak, or virtually leave the building. And then they actually build an MVP and present the concept all within 48 hours. So it's a pretty heavy lift for them. And a lot of the students are not entrepreneurs or don't have an entrepreneurial background or have never been exposed to entrepreneurship before. So in your dealings with students, you probably realize how challenging that's going to be for many of them. So what we do is we provide them with a structured process with useful tools, models, and frameworks, and access to faculty coaches, which really is key throughout the process. So we have the coaches work with the teams throughout the weekend, or if it's conducted during the week as well, and guide them and ensure that they are making sustained progress along the way. So you can imagine with students who get thrown into this process, there are going to be a lot of concerned and nervous looks right off the bat, and just a lot of questions as to what exactly they're doing. This is maybe even exacerbated when they come directly out of like a strategy MBA course where they're used to like linear way of thinking and structured decision models. And so we're really throwing them into this mix. So the coaches can make a big difference overall. And that idea of helping the students to deal with this level of uncertainty and just to push them to take action, even though they don't have all the answers, is really the important piece here. In my view, this is probably the core idea of what it means to be a resourceful entrepreneur, taking action towards this opportunity without perfect information and kind of with a focused way of not thinking about or not being overly concerned with the resource constraints, right? So just focusing on the value proposition the value that you're trying to deliver to consumers and who those consumers might be is a big part of what we're doing here. By the end of the Idea Blitz, students have increased their entrepreneurial confidence and their general comfort with ambiguity that's inherent in this process. And the true goal here is really just to foster that entrepreneurial mindset and that entrepreneurial way of thinking or those action steps, as opposed to launching companies. That's what we were trying to get after when we started this process here. So what does it actually look like? I'll show you some of the curriculum steps here on this slide. Essentially, we have 9 steps that are part of the Idea Blitz, and they follow they cutely follow the terms Idea Blitz, right? So each stage, students receive a short 20 to 30 minute live lecture, and then a set of structured tools that are handed to them right as they're experiencing this for the first time. Right after the lecture, the students immediately go into breakout sessions, and then they have a specific outcome goal for the session with a strict time deadline. So by the end of that session, they have to deliver something, and then they take a short break, and then we go immediately into the next section. So the first one starts with I, and that is the identify stage. So identify a problem. In this stage, students are required to first submit a short video of ideas that they might want to work on, or we actually focus them to submit the idea on pain points that they might want to work on the weekend. And through a vetting process, we form teams and we surface the best ideas there. Then we take them into the discover stage, where students come together as a team for the first time, and they begin to seek out external. They begin to surface or speak with external perspectives. I didn't catch that. I'm sorry if that was something directed for me. But I'll have a chance to answer some questions in a moment.
Yeah, just keep going, Regan.
Okay, all right. So discover stage, this is where we get them out of the building. And as you can imagine, this is kind of where the light bulb goes off for a lot of them. And they start thinking about, okay, now I'm starting to understand this entrepreneurial process, and it's demystified for them a little bit. This is really about taking action and doing things without perfect information. Next, we get them to expand through a brainstorm activity where they have identified a pain that they think is worth solving, And we try to get them to throw away their first idea as to how to solve that and really develop, try to figure out pain product fit as many different ways as they can. So it's this really brainstorm expansionary stage. From there, we then force them, we do the exact opposite. We force them to align, right? So we take them through this process where there's a heat mapping and there's some vetting that takes place, and they're forced into one of these ideas. And then we go over to the other side of the screen here, which is to build. So we get them to actually build a minimum viable product. Many of you are familiar with this perspective, but we're having them do that in about 90 minutes. So that can take the form of a physical product. It could take the form of a web or mobile mock-up, but it has to be something tangible. It has to be something that can show the nuances of what they're actually building or what they're actually working on. Then they learn from that. They go out back to the market and try to get more information from stakeholders. They iterate, and then finally they have this tell stage, which can be delivered in different ways. So in past, we've delivered that as a crowdfunding video, which is designed to show off the MVP in its kind of minimum viable form through a video. That's probably useful for more advanced students. It could also be just a summary of your learnings at that stage. And then the final stage, which is also pretty critical given the goals of the program, is this idea of celebrating. So originally when the Idea Blitz came about, we were all virtual. This is a 2020 innovation. So we were on Zoom and we couldn't think of a better use of for the letter Z. And so we came up with celebrate. And essentially it's an opportunity to celebrate what they've done and to reflect on the process. And you know, that's what we've come up with. That's the idea in a nutshell. I'll stop here. I can answer questions about outcomes or history of it and other questions you might have. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Regan. Great stuff. When you first started describing this, my first reaction was that it sounded like a startup weekend. But I can see as you went through it a little more detail that there are some key differences there. And did you look at Startup Weekend as a model and consciously decide to adapt from that, or did this emerge in some other more organic form?
Yeah. I mean, so it did emerge in a much more organic form, and I'll describe that in a second. But basically, what we've done in terms of the tools, all the tools are customized, but the motivation and overlap is there certainly with Startup Weekend, with lean development, with sprint design, and other programs that we've taught, and probably similar programs that you've taught in your programs. But we took all of those and we kind of called the best of all those things and focused them on the learning goal of taking the idea through validation, actually to a point in time where you'd have something that was presentation worthy or that you could make a decision point on. So that's how we did it. In terms of how it actually emerged, this program, kind of a crazy story. I mean, we were all part of this. So early in 2020, March 12th, March 2020, what happened is all of our schools shut down, probably in sequence. And we had a group of professors that had just had a bunch of classes ended, and we came together on a Zoom call and said, we'd like to do something. We have this knowledge base on how to build how to take ideas from idea stage through validation and launch. We'd like to do something that goes beyond a credit hour course, and we'd like to kind of leverage our own backgrounds in entrepreneurship and kind of come up with an entrepreneurial hustle type of initiative. And so we actually launched an open call to the world on March 15th and said, we want to take anybody that's interested anywhere for a non-credit course, sign up, open call. We'll take you through idea to validation over a very short period of time. And at this point in time, all the ideas were focused on solutions that could potentially help somebody as it related to the global shutdown or COVID, et cetera, right? So not necessarily medical solutions, but could be from work from home solutions or teaching related solutions, childcare related solutions, all of the above were on the table. That's how the program kicked off. And then since then, we've launched it as a more formal credit program with different outcomes. So long answer.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question.
Well, I think it's interesting. So you said the students do now earn credit from this. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's a 4-credit program. It's been targeted to our online MBA students, and they can do it either online format or in person. And it's just an opportunity for them to supplement and complement a lot of the other tools they're getting in the MBA program predominantly. But it doesn't have to stop there. It could be expanded to other students as well.
That's great. And there are some questions coming through the chat. One is around how do you attract the students? I suspect the 4 credits is one draw. I know our students love to earn credits, especially in a concentrated time, in addition to obviously the value of the content they're going to get. Are there any other tricks or best practices for attracting students? And do the students show up in teams or as individuals?
Yeah, so what's really interesting, and I'm sure everybody on this call is feeling this trend as well. You have just a newfound interest amongst MBA students in wanting to understand the entrepreneurial mindset, right? So they're getting a lot of core development in other areas, finance, accounting, strategy. And just by putting it out there as this open call that's very action-based and it's very hands-on, and we have these discrete outcomes that we want you to achieve by the end of the weekend, we've had no problem attracting students. The biggest issue for them is, can they give up a whole weekend, right? Can they give up a whole weekend? They're busy, they have families and things like that. So once they're able to overcome that hurdle, we have no problem signing them up. In terms of how the ideas emerge, they all emerge as individual pain point surfacing. And then the ideas form based on kind of a crowdsourced process. You surface the idea that you think is most interesting, and then you almost self-select into the team. But you don't know that until you show up on the Friday evening. Boom, then you're in the team and you start working on it almost immediately. So a little bit of a teamwork shock there as well.
Excellent. And if you don't mind putting the link in the chat here when we're finished chatting ourselves, and how much of the materials and tools and details are available on that website, or is there some other way that our audience today can get a hold of your special sauce there?
Yeah, I mean, the website primarily shows outcomes, goals, a little bit as it relates to the tools. But if anybody has questions about it or wants more information, just feel free to send me an email. My email I'll put in the chat as well for that, and provided a general overview of the tools. We have our own customized tools and materials that we've used. We'd be happy to share some of that, but it's really more about the steps as opposed to the specific tools. We've iterated on that a few times, and we would change it depending on the student focus as well.
Congratulations on that, Regan. I know we hosted startup weekends on our campus for a few years, and we got great benefit for a while, but after maybe the third time, it felt like the benefit had dwindled and we stopped doing it. And one of the challenges was the student attention span for an entire weekend. The whole definition of immersive means you kind of expect them to be there full time, and that was difficult in some ways. So congrats on solving that problem and getting your students there and having that benefit. All right, so we're going to move to our third university that we're featuring here today. This program is so good, we've got 2 people to present. Representing the University of California at Berkeley and the Berkeley Method, we have Susan GCEC, who is the Director of Global Engagements at the Sudarja Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology at UC Berkeley. And joining Susan is Keith McAleer, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at the Sudarja Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology. So Keith and Susan, take it away.
Great, thanks Jeff, and thanks to, it's great hearing from Wisconsin and Indiana about the great things happening. Keith and I are honored to be a part of just sharing what's happening out here on the West Coast in sunny Berkeley. Keith, go ahead and flip to the next slide. We're going to give you an overview of just what Berkeley does with our Berkeley Method of Entrepreneurship, and then Keith will highlight also what we do with a very intensive 1-week boot camp. We're housed within the College of Engineering, but we primarily, we have classes for students all throughout the campus, and as well as many international students. And so in our courses, we focus on inductive learning, just this discovery-based learning. It's very journey-based. We're going to highlight kind of the mindsets and behaviors that we look for, frameworks and cases, and then just having the students have a very diverse network. So flipping to the next slide, a key part of how we teach and what we do is this inductive journey-based learning, where the students become proactive learners. It's a problem-based approach where they're looking for solutions to world challenges or problems, and they really seek out answers by observing. the focus of the course is obviously not grades and lectures, but it's really on the goals and learning. And probably the best person to describe this is our Chief Learning Officer, Ken Singer. So Keith has put a brief clip in here for you to listen to.
Here it goes. Let me know if you have any trouble hearing.
We also have communication games to show how you think you're communicating properly, but the other person actually isn't understanding you. You can see it so clearly, but as you try to transfer that knowledge to an engineer or to a designer to build it, something's going to be lost. And that frustration that can emerge can break teams. And it creates empathy. Once you see that, you can see how difficult it is to birth an idea. One of the most important parts of the Berkeley method is inductive education. So the Socratic method, where you get to explore an idea through questioning it. And the question might already have an answer, but the student going through that process of exploring and discovering the answer builds the muscle memory, right? It builds the neural paths of doing your own Q&A. Why is this the way it is? Well, I asked that question and it had this answer. I was told that's no, so I asked this other question. And if you think about what a startup does, is they go and talk to customers and they ask these questions and they get a no, and then they're like, okay, then I need to look at it differently this way and I need to ask that question. You need that Socratic experience. And what that looks like is sometimes rather than we give you a lecture up front, we give you an experience, typically a game that you play, and then that experience becomes the case. And you ask questions as a facilitator. Why did you do that? Why did I automatically think that was the solution when I should have explored others? Why did I discount this customer and not that one? So you're training them to be inductive, because again, when you're at the edge and doing something new, there is no textbook to tell you whether you got it right or wrong.
Thanks, Keith. So that just highlights a little bit of our inductive learning. One of the things that Berkeley has done as well is come up with like observing entrepreneurial behavior. And we've put this into kind of a self-assessment called the Berkeley Innovation Index. So it's often given at the beginning as well as at the end of a class. And it really is what we focus on in the classes is getting the students to kind of stretch these skills or these traits. And the first one, and you can take it yourself, you can obviously, just like with personality profiles, you can push it to one side or another, but if you take it honestly, it's really going to evaluate how your ability to trust, your ability to overcome failure, your resilience, how open you are to diversity and overcoming social barriers, your kind of mental strength or that grit factor, how dogged you are at keeping at your idea, how open you are to collaborating, as well as resource awareness, and then finally your innovation zone, how open you are to work in areas of uncertainty. So Keith now will take it over and focus a little further as we wrap up here.
Great, thank you, Susan. So as Susan mentioned, we have 5 elements of this Berkeley method of teaching, and she went through the inductive learning, journey-based, mindsets, behaviors, and so frameworks and cases are still very important to our teaching. So for example, one framework we love to use is the NABC method. We also developed our own framework called Innovation Engineering, and we have a little diagram on the right here. So you can see we use this in our very popular Data X course. And really we help students create an insightful story and then have a low-tech demo, and then they create a strategy from that and then create a prototype. And you can learn more about this framework here at this innovationengineering.space website. And final element of the Berkeley method is the network and connections. We all know that your networks are very important. And the main takeaway here is that we at our center have something called, we call it the Innovation Collider, because we really want to emphasize that diverse teams are more valuable. So for example, in this diagram, we have different types of students and industry partners and global partners coming together. Like Susan mentioned, we give them some mindsets. We have helped them look at themselves through a lens of mindset. We have experiential games, as Ken mentioned in the video, and then from that, we hope to create some innovative outcomes. And so we do have an immersive experience to execute all this, and it's called the Berkeley Method of Entrepreneurship Bootcamp. So it's a 1-week bootcamp. So students take an idea from 0 to 1 in 5 days. again, with this Innovation Collider idea, we get students from all around the world to come. So we have about half Berkeley students and half students from dozens of countries. As Susan mentioned, they will take the Innovation Index at the beginning to put their mind in the lens of thinking about their attitudes and mindsets and behaviors. They take it again at the end. And then we have some games that they will experience throughout the bootcamp. There are, of course, lectures and other framework lectures too, and guest speakers. But the games are a very critical part of it. So you can see we have the spaghetti game, which maybe some of you have played. We have this one called rejection therapy, where essentially we have students, take something very low value, like a paperclip, and go out into the campus and then basically try to trade it for something better. So they get the experience of being told no dozens and dozens of time. And then from that, they realize that being told no is okay, and they can become basically more okay with failure. So yeah, that's pretty much what we have for this. Thank you all for your attention and learning with us today.
Excellent. Thank you, Keith and Susan. So there are some questions coming through the chat here. I'll ask one to start off with, and that's, how do you attract students beyond the engineering school? I think you mentioned that you have a diversity of participants in the program. What are the outreach efforts that are successful in your case?
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, Kate. I was going to say, Berkeley kind of has entrepreneurship permeated through all aspects of the curriculum. And there's actually, even for people that don't like the term entrepreneur, we have a whole change maker initiative where students can take courses to be a change maker. And that's very appealing as a Berkeley student. So we actually, Keith can talk a little bit about the recruiting, but our classes sort of naturally fill up with students from lots of different academic areas. And then my responsibility is also bringing in different global perspectives, and some having international students a part of that too. And it's one of the few, our courses are one of the few times that the engineers are engaging with business students, are engaging with philosophy or other liberal arts students. And Keith, you may want to elaborate.
I think that's great what Susan said. Yeah, so Susan's bringing students from all over the world, and they're so good because they're coming just to be for this program, and they want to be part of a startup entrepreneurship program. And so they add a lot of value to the classes. And then, yeah, I'm responsible for recruiting on campus, and we do have more letters and science students than engineering and business students, actually. And yeah, many, even though they're not for credit, for most programs, they don't count toward degree. We do have a certificate in entrepreneurship and technology. So that is one carrot that attracts students to our program.
Excellent. We heard from Dan earlier that getting too many law students is always a problem, right? So you got to watch out for that.
Well noted.
Yeah. Excellent. So I'm going to invite all our panelists to kind of rejoin. And if you have any additional comments or questions you want to ask each other, that's fine too. I'll throw out one here that maybe to kick it off. These programs are all immersive. They're either a week long or a weekend long. How do you have similar materials or content or experiences that are in a more semester long format? Like, do you have a course that covers the same information, for instance, in a different format? And if so, how do you manage the difference between the immersive program versus the maybe longer form program? Like, in other words, can students take both and get different credits for that, or is that not even an issue for your particular program? And anybody can dive in.
I'm happy to jump in. Berkeley's intensive 1 week boot camp is for credit for the Berkeley students, and it's held 1 week before classes start. So for the students eager to, jump ahead and get some credit, they take it. What happens in that 1 week is these are all just very budding, very new ideas. So it's all undergrad students. They're usually juniors or seniors. So they really don't get to concentrate and develop that idea. We do have longer semester long, we call them challenge labs, where they can really dive deep into whether the topic is deplastify or applications of data science. So some students take both. Some of the global students, because of their schedules, are only able to come for that 1 week. Most students take one or the other. They're listed differently on the in the course catalog, so they couldn't get credit for both, but the semester long allows them to go deeper into their idea and create a more substantial product or service.
Dan or Regan?
Yeah, we have a similar, well, the our boot camp is not for credit, so we don't quite have that overlap. It's still knowing that there's certain things that take a whole semester to get to maturity, and you're only in a week, you can't do it. So I'd say from a design standpoint, we focus on making sure that the students can prepare for the very next day. So we actually set some time at the end of the day for them to read a case, work with their team, so that the next day they're raring to go, and bake that into the schedule as well.
I'll add one little quick thing. Yeah, of course, a lot of the materials that we talk about in the Idea Blitz can spill over into a semester-long course, because what we're actually doing is trying to simulate the actual entrepreneurial process, right? The process that entrepreneurs would go through. So there wouldn't be a difference in theme, but what's unique about the immersive short time period is making decisions about what not to include, right? So I think the process of entrepreneurship, we're all steeped in it, so we're familiar with it, we're comfortable with it. But for a new student, it's really overwhelming as to all the things that you could be trying to pursue at the same time. So we're really intentional by looking at saying we're only going to look at, say, value proposition and customer segments of the business model canvas without using that terminology. And we're not going to think about anything else. So if a question comes up as it relates to supply chain, we actually try to push that off and explain that there's going to be a time to solve that problem, but it's not right now. It's not while you're validating the idea. So that would be the difference between a semester long, where we would dive into some of those other aspects.
That's great. Yeah, we have a course at Georgetown our MBA students can take. It's coming up in another week or two. It's a 1-week course. We call it the Startup Factory. And it's part of a set of immersive learning experiences. And so it's the one focused on entrepreneurship. And I can say some of the students love it, right? They absolutely sign up for it. It's highly sought after. They spend the week essentially forming teams, pitching ideas, doing customer discovery. And by the end of the week, the students are really excited to present what they've learned. And there's usually a handful that really want to pursue their business. And Dan, something you mentioned, maybe think about this is the weekends, right? The immersive experience is great in a lot of ways because they don't have other distractions, right? That's one of the differences between having this as part of a regular curriculum where they have other courses going on. So they're able to focus on this for a short period of time, and maybe they get really excited and learn a lot about entrepreneurship. But then what happens the next day, right? What comes next? And some of our students get so excited, and then some of them do start real companies, but others, they kind of get back into the regular flow of life and classes and other things, and it goes away. So I wonder if you guys have experienced that. Like, it's some of the pros and cons of having an immersive experience. One of those might be kind of what happens next. If you guys run into any of those kind of challenges.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, we liken it to summer camp when you were a kid, that it kind of at the end of that, there were people that were best friends forever. And then some you kept in touch with, but a lot, you never talked to again. And after that immersive experience, that happens. And I think what we have created that has been helpful is an alumni group. And the people, even if they don't have an event, or if they know there could be other people they'd like to see again, you can tie that to an event, and it kind of keeps them engaged. And you asked about Tech Transfer Office. WARF has a good speaker series. We have a lot of different good speaker series, and just knowing that, hey, I'll actually probably know someone that I'd like to see when I go to this, can be an extra draw and keep them engaged.
So I'll just maybe add on to it. So one of the things, obviously, that's going to happen when you're working with ideas at the end of the weekend. Oftentimes, students realize that the idea wasn't as strong as they thought it was, and that's a perfectly fine outcome. And we want to support that outcome to fail at that point in time and to move on. So that's a kind of the easy endpoint. But then in other cases, students realize that they are infected with the entrepreneurial bug and they want to keep going with this. And so we certainly have to have an opportunity for them to have a debrief. And so we have a debrief with the teams. And then if they want to connect in with an alumni for advisory, or we've also connected some students that were advanced with directly in with a venture capital network within IU as well. So those, it's a little bit customized at that point, and it requires a little bit more work on the faculty part. So just making sure that we budget that in as part of the outcome is important as well.
One thing to add that we noticed at Berkeley, the same issue, or not necessarily an issue, because some students, are learning some skills, but maybe do not want to go forward with their startup, right? But for the ones that do, it is kind of hard at the end, like, oh, now what do I do, right? So one thing that we've done is we've added a startup acceleration course, which is essentially like the second course you would take after you do one of our immersive courses. And we had the first time this last semester, and it actually worked out really well. We had quite a few teams who were able to go a bit further on with their project. I guess another thing we didn't have time to mention before is we do also have a 5-week immersive course, which is the European Innovation Academy. I don't know if anyone else is part of this program, but it's the largest summer abroad program at Berkeley. And we are sending about 70 or 80 students this summer to Portugal to be able to start up with people around the world. And I think after that one, 5 weeks is a little longer than 1 week, right? And I feel like these students after that, they feel like they've gone through something amazing together, and their friends for, maybe it's like summer camp, but those teams, I feel like have a stronger chance of staying together in what I've observed.
And they get to spend a few weeks in Portugal, which is great, right?
Unforgettable.
We've been approached by that program, and one of the selling points was that our students could earn academic credit through Berkeley, right? And if our own university has not yet figured out a way to offer credit for that particular program, maybe they can earn credits from Berkeley that could transfer in. So that's
there you go.
So, okay, some other questions here coming through the chat. You guys feel free to jump in whatever you want. There's has anybody had challenges, and I guess this would apply to Berkeley or Indiana for the credit bearing. Has there been any challenges getting your courses in this immersive format approved by the powers that be? Or is that not an issue at your school?
Well, in our case, and this is like not good advice for sure, especially for somebody that's pre-tenure, is we actually launched this as an open call, right? That was outside, and it was in response to a crisis that was developing that we thought we had an opportunity to help with. And that's the success of that program, and the fact that people were interested and there were some good outcomes actually allowed us to say this is something we should be offering for our MBA students as well. So probably not the best way to go about it, but in our case, it ended up working out.
Well, serving a customer need and building on it, that's what we teach, right? But
exactly.
Universities are notoriously not innovative in that sense. So congratulations on getting that done. Now at Berkeley, is this the only course of its type, or was there a unique process to get it approved in this way?
Actually, all of our courses are very immersive. And so I think it's because we are a center affiliated with the College of Engineering, and we're not part of a major. So we're an elective course. The courses that we offer will have anywhere from 20 some odd courses a semester. They're all elective courses, but there obviously is a very strict protocol to go through to get those courses approved, but we've been successful in doing that. And each year they change based on emerging technologies, like the focus of the course will offer different ones. So each time those have to be approved.
And I know we found, so at Georgetown, we do have a whole set of courses, not all about entrepreneurship, but our MBA students, they have a week-long course at a couple of different times during the school year. One in March, one in January. It's become so popular. Some students like to take as many of these as they can and advance, maybe accelerate their graduation. So the different formats have become more and more popular at our school, at least for the MBA students. We're trying to figure out how to do that for undergrads, and it's not always as easy for other programs.
One of the probably most unique avenues of getting credit at Berkeley is a series of courses called decals, and they're actually student proposed and run courses. So we've got classes on blockchain, on meta, on what students think is interesting. I mean, it could be Quidditch, it could be, but in the area of entrepreneurship, they're in charge. They have to have a faculty advisor. So I think Berkeley is, they've been creative in what they are allowing for credit. As long as you've got your major requirements, the decals obviously fall into the area of electives, and ours are electives as well.
That's excellent. So there are some more questions. There's a few questions around the motivations of the students or the demographics of the students. So you guys can maybe read through those and chime in where you'd like. I'll say there are a couple of questions around faith-based entrepreneurship. Being at a Jesuit Catholic university, we do have some strong connections with that in our entrepreneurship program. I teach a class specifically on the intersection of entrepreneurship and the Jesuit tradition. So I'm happy to connect offline with other folks who are interested in those topics. Anybody else that wants to chime in through chat on anything they might do in those areas is welcome to do so. But yeah, there's a couple of questions here. I'd love to hear from our panelists. Do students take your courses because they think they're fun, or the students themselves think they're creative, or I guess you can read the questions and answer however you'd like on those.
I think for us, it's we do have this certificate. So that again is like a small carrot for some students who want to show that they interested in innovation, technology, entrepreneurship. I think some students want to just learn some technology skills. So that's something we emphasize as well. And then as Susan mentioned before, we also are working in our messaging to make it very open, accessible. Entrepreneurship in business for many people, especially at Berkeley in letters and science, doesn't sound cool or like something they want to be a part of. So our chief innovation officer on campus, he created this campaign called Change Maker. And it's a way of saying, you can be a change maker, you can execute on your idea. And that's a way to be more open and make more people interested in what we're doing. And you don't have to be like a startup entrepreneur to be a part of our program. You just have to be someone who wants to execute on your idea.
We're getting a lot of traction with that change maker language as well. There's probably a longer conversation, but there are a lot of students in our community who think entrepreneurship means exploiting. There's
Right.
some negative connotations, but the idea of being a change maker does carry a lot of weight. All right, as we're getting close to the end of our time here, I want to ask our panelists, are there any other lessons learned or tips, best practices that you want to share, something that maybe we haven't already covered? And I guess I'll let Dan make any final comments, and then we'll go to Regan and Susan and Keith.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to mention something that we discovered, and it gets to this question about the demographics. Many of our institutions, especially in the graduate STEM fields, the underrepresented minority group, is not, just not enough. We have found really good success in reaching out to our School of Education, because there are lots of ed tech ideas that are there. And that's one of the schools that has a very strong, very diverse graduate population. And they've been great students, and they fit that technology bill that you wouldn't think of at first. You don't think of education as a STEM area, but it definitely has some neat ideas coming out of there and interesting students. So I passed, that's one thing we learned that has been very helpful in addressing that.
Regan, last comments.
Okay, so I think there's a lot of things and first of all, thanks for having me present today. It was really interesting. I've posted a link to the website and a couple of research papers that describe that entrepreneurial process as to how this came about, and more details on the curriculum. But in terms of thinking about tips for this, it's maybe trying to, I think one of the challenges, maybe this is an old challenge that's been resolved in a lot of places, but one of the old challenges has always been, okay, you're going to teach entrepreneurship. How do you make sure that you have, a unicorn start out of your program? And I think that's an unattainable goal. And one of the things that we've been pitching internally is it's not necessarily about, we don't want to track outcomes. We don't want to make sure that every startup weekend or every idea blitz or every initiative that we do has 10 startups that launch out of it. It's more about infecting this entrepreneurial mindset broadly on campus. And if we can start to reframe the way that we talk about that when we pitch internal courses, and when we talk about that as the outcome of interest, then I think that can be really, really beneficial, because you're not held to that standard that you have to launch a unicorn from your program, which we know is a lot of random chance. So that's one of the tips that I'd have. And then the last one is, if you're going to launch a program that's 48 hours long, make sure you have lots of coffee and a lot of faculty buy-in.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. Susan.
That's great. Thanks, Reagan. I would concur. What we're about is trying to infect students with just the idea of being change makers or making a difference. And so I would say a key for us is really trying to reach a diverse audience in terms of students we want that they go through Berkeley and they can't help but run into innovation or entrepreneurial or creative thinking. And whether they end up being entrepreneurs or not, they're going to be better innovators and better world changers looking at our, global situation. And that's what we really strive to. A couple of just quick things, like thinking of what Dan said. I've loved his idea of reaching out to the School of Education. We actually reached out to our athletes and got our engineers and athletes who probably, some of them meet, but some of them don't meet, and they worked on sports tech ideas. We also do a lot in the area of social entrepreneurship with developing countries. And so that really brings in people who have more humanitarian interest in innovation. And Keith, you may want to add on some of those.
Sure, yeah, and thank you guys for having me as well. And yeah, just adding to that, really, I think our big takeaway is the innovation collider idea. It's just getting different people as possible together. And adding on to what Susan said, we also have industry lecturers. If we have a professor, we'll have someone from industry, so they co-teach. So we have someone who is in that domain. As I mentioned, Susan's bringing students from all around the world to come to our program. When we recruit on campus, we are thinking like, oh, can we get the music majors involved? Can we get, the more different from us, the better. And we really, for us, it's really worked out well to have different people come together in all of our courses. So I think that's one of the main takeaways. And also, yeah, working on making all courses immersive, really. Like Susan said, I think we have one course, our big lecture course, it's not immersive, but the rest of them really are. They're all about making a prototype, having experiential learning, and having students actually go through the steps of creating a venture or creating a prototype. So yeah, working to have students actually think for themselves and work on an idea in every class is really, we think is very valuable.
Awesome. Well, please join me in thanking our panelists. We really appreciate all of your insights and sharing your experiences from Susan, Regan, Dan, and Keith. Thank you very much for joining us today. The video for today's session and I believe the panelist slide decks are going to be posted to the GCEC website along with all of our previous webinar videos. So you'll have a chance to go back and watch it again if you'd like. We also have some future webinars coming up. We generally go the last Friday of the month. Next month in March, note the asterisk here, our virtual connection webinar is actually going to be on March 18th. So it's not the last Friday. We hope you'll see us on March 18th and then the end of April and then on into the summer. And once again, the annual conference in October in Las Vegas. We hope we'll see a huge turnout there. And keep doing amazing things in your entrepreneur centers. I know that there's a lot of crazy things going on in the world. Hopefully the students and faculty and others that we're working with and inspiring are going to go out and create a better future for all of us. So thanks again. We'll hope we'll see you at another GCEC event soon.